Hello and welcome to Conversations That Connect. We are your hosts Suki and Tayla.
Join us as we explore the IT, digital, accounting and finance recruitment industry and dive into the factors shaping our careers and life.
Get ready for engaging discussions that bridge work, life and really everything in between.
Grab your headphones, sit back and let's explore the connections that drive success.
So for us, it's really about today talking and giving some tips, practical tips for clients, HR, staff, hiring managers, anybody that has to step into that space where you're actually doing the ad, writing the ad, putting that up on the different platforms, putting it up on your website. We've just recently seen a lot more where we're looking at ads when we were engaging with the client, looking at their ad that they have up, having been briefed on the position that we have to help with, and then it just doesn't align. So there's a miscommunication on the ad, and it's small things. Small things like if you're looking for a contract person, but you want this position to go permanent, and you're advertising as a contract, you're not, 99% of the time, you will not attract contract people that want to go permanent.
Yeah.
Contract people want to do contract, and it's a specialist area for them. And permanent people want to do permanent work. Contract people also have a 2-week notice. Permanent people have a 4-week notice. So there's little differences in the market of what you're actually looking for. Yeah, and just trying to align that so that you don't get to the end of your recruitment process and say, there's no people available. Well, there might not be, because the people that you're attracting is very different to what you're actually looking for. Prime example, I at the moment have a data analytics manager position available. The role itself, they're looking for hands-on technical with some management mentoring skills. So when we advertised the position, I changed the title of the role to data analytics lead. All of a sudden, that role says to the market, this is a technical position and I need somebody with some management skills. If the role was advertised as a data analytics manager role, what it's saying is this is a management position with some technical skills. And that was the opposite of what the client was looking for. So then once you then attract the candidates, I had a very open conversation with them and said, the title of the position on the position description is actually manager. This is the reason why I advertised it differently and I attracted the right people for that role. So small little changes, but just knowing the market and knowing how to make that changes and where to make the changes, you will you should attract the right people, even if it's maybe 2 or 3. But that's a subtle changes because the market reads the ad different to what you actually mean. And even if it's in the position description and there's no mention of mentoring or managing, and even if it's in the desirable skills, just the fact that it's called a manager, people won't even click into the position necessarily. So small change, huge impact, huge impact.
But also with that one, you're attracting people in a different pay bracket as well.
Correct.
So that role was being advertised as a manager, but it didn't have a manager salary either. No. So that's kind of like you're wasting your time there talking to those people because they're not at the salary range that you're looking for as well. So that also comes into play.
Yes, correct.
Does the salary actually match the title?
Yes. And then once that does happen, Tali, you've mentioned that where the candidate read the ad, got a feeling about the ad that you advertised. And then once you spoke to the candidate, explained the position and the company in more detail, that feeling was reinforced. Mm-hmm. And then when they went to meet the client, that feeling was reinforced again. It's just confirmation all the way.
Yeah.
And yes, it's difficult to know what a feeling is and how to create that but you can absolutely do that.
And you will, I guess, if you go in with the intention of finding the right person will be attracted by the ad. And I know that can be a little woo-woo, a little spiritual, all of that, but it does, the way that you write an ad does attract a certain person to it, and
Correct.
vice versa. Yeah, and it is hard to describe, but it's happened a lot of times.
Yes, it has.
And like, I still talk about this same candidate that we placed a little bit over 12 months ago now.
Yep.
And we're working with that client again, and it's about the feeling. And again, like, it's really hard to explain it, but the first person that we put in there, she got the feeling from the ad. I spoke to her and I'm like, oh my God. So it reiterated that feeling. And then again, when she met the client, again, it's a feeling.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Like, I feel like recruitment's all about timing, and also some of it could be that feeling.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know how many times I've said feeling, but it's hard to describe.
Can create that. We can create that feeling with our ad, but if our client does not continue that, we can do the best job possible. But when the candidate goes for interview and the client, we haven't either explained it correctly, or the client just isn't giving the candidate what they need, which is part of our education process to the client as well, and us making sure that what we convey to the candidate is exactly what they can expect in an interview, then that process breaks down. So it's that whole relationship with us, getting that message across to the market, reiterating that message when you speak to candidates. So you're almost like a billboard for your client before your client is even aware of any of the candidates that you're speaking with. We're your brand, we're in the market, we're telling the clients or the candidates, this is the client that you have to go for and that you have to put an application in for. I had years ago, sorry, that's my vacuum.
Oh, I love that. Working from home.
Especially how much dust is in my house.
I was going to say, it sounds like a really solid vacuum cleaner.
It's a solid vacuum cleaner. It's charging now. Years ago, I had a client that were recruiting. I think we recruited probably about 15 staff for them into a project. And the HR person who was the first point of contact, I don't know how she did it, but she was incredible in her way of working with us as a company. The message that we got across, so we knew exactly what the message was. We were able to describe the client in feeling words, how they are, what you can expect. This is what we could paint the picture because they allowed us to do that. And then once the candidate then interviewed with the client, it was literally from meeting at reception, the HR person, taking them through to the hiring manager, taking them back to reception, thanking them for that whole experience. I didn't have one candidate that interviewed that was not wowed by that client.
So good.
And then when the candidate started on their first day, there was extra effort made, just a name on the table, how are you meeting? Like that, it just everything confirmed. And every candidate, even if they didn't get the job, they were blown away by how they were treated as an individual. And when they didn't get the role, we received feedback and we were able to give constructive feedback back to candidates where they were, thank you, really appreciate it. It was great to meet them. Loved the interview, positive experience. So that meant that in 3 months' time, when they were looking again, that candidate would go, yes, I'm happy to go interview with them again because my skill set might be suitable now.
Yeah.
Where with some candidates, you just never hear back. You don't know the feedback. So it's like it's the process, and it's making every little person that's part of that process really part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I want to touch on, and you mentioned earlier, like contract versus perm. That is huge as well. And the people that you attract. So contract people only want contract for a number of reasons. It could be they don't like to stay in places for too long. They like to jump from contract to contract, keeps it exciting. There's more money involved in contract work as well. Or they may contract gives them that flexibility where they can work for 6 months and have 3 months off, and it's their terms are on their terms, kind of thing. But also the mindset around contracting is completely different. Again, like you said, Suki, 2-week notice period.
Yeah.
But also, and I'm not saying this is for every single contractor, but you have contractors who obviously chase the money. And if they're in a 6-month contract, they've done 3 months, there's another 6-month contract that comes up and they're offered more money, the likelihood of them jumping ship is a lot higher than a permanent staff. So that's a struggle in itself. And if you do advertise as contract, that's the chance that you take. You're not probably going to get the permanent staff that you're looking for, especially if you are wanting to make the role into a permanent role. You probably might think about advertising as a permanent, offering a permanent contract with a probation period. But then with contractors too, they know their daily rates. They know what they can get and all of that. So it is a lot higher. It's a lot higher risk as well. And there was something else that I was going to say, but it's completely just gone out of my mind.
Slipped your mind.
Yes. But yeah, with a permanent employee, they're more likely a permanent employee who's currently working won't really jump to contract work because they've got solid, they know what they're getting every week. They've got solid income. They've got leave entitlements. I had a good conversation with a candidate around this last week, and he was interested in the role that we had. It was contract initially. He thought that it could have been worth the risk. Anyway, he went, obviously spoke to his wife, did all of that. He chose not to go ahead on it purely because there was no guarantee of work after, and he didn't really want to be left with no work. And also he wasn't there was no paid leave or paid sick leave or anything like that because that's contract. Yeah. So he, again, perm for perm, contract for contract. Yep. It's very rare that you get people jumping from ship. It's less rare from a contractor jumping into a perm role than it is from a perm jumping into a contractor. Yeah. So again, just thoughts around that as well and how people are perceiving in the market. How people are perceiving you. If you offer perm, it shows that you're willing to give them that
commitment.
The commitment, that's the word I was looking for.
It's it's the unspoken.
It's like a psychological contract.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a reason why a client can only do a contract, and ideally they'd like to go have it permanent. But if from the onset it's a contract that will go into permanent, you're paying more for a contractor. So your expenses are higher just purely because contractors expect daily rates to be higher because they take a risk. They can be out of work with a 2-week notice period. And you're attracting the wrong person. So even if it does go permanent, you're probably not going to be able to afford that person because they're expecting a similar equivalent salary compared to what they're earning as a contractor. It's that commitment around it. So if it's permanent, you have a notice period of 4 weeks. You do have your probation period. So if you're scared that you might want to not jump in and commit 100% from the onset, you have a backup plan. There is a way that if this person is not the right person, that you can step it back. After 3 months, of course, that will be more difficult. Or 6 months, whatever your probation period is. So contracting would be easier in that sense. But after 2 or 3 months, you should know if this candidate is the right candidate for this role, be it contract or permanent.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess at the end of the day, it really comes down to the business and what the business needs, and whether the business can afford to put on a contractor and then potentially take them perm, or whether they just want to do contracting, or whether they want to do a perm with a probation. Because, I mean, you still kind of have a probation. Well, you don't really have a probation with a contractor, but you're still taking that risk whether they're going to work or not. So it's whether you want to take a risk for a permanent or a risk for a contractor, and you potentially would pay more for contracting. Well, you would pay more.
Yeah, you would.
But also there's that commitment, which it's probably not a black and white line. It's probably a grey line, because, you know, contract's a contract.
Yeah, correct. You come in for a piece of work and you move on. And that's the mindset of contractors as well, is I come in, I do a piece of work, and then I'm done. I'm not getting involved in the organization as such. I'm not here long term. I'm here short term. And that's the view that they have as contractors. So I think to wrap it up for us, it's, if it is a case that you want to do a contract role that goes into permanent, and we've had the conversation and there's a reason why that happens, that's fine. We can then go and find the candidates that would be prepared to look at that and explain to them why this is happening. It's not because the client doesn't want to commit, and they you know, that the risk is on you as the candidate, not on them as the client. We can explain the picture to them. But small things can make a huge, huge difference. And just like we educate candidates around their resumes and applying for positions and suitability statements, all of that, we're also here to do that for our clients, to help. Like, look at the ad. What are you saying? Why are you change that? Highlight this. I think in IT,
a couple of words that just need tweaking or changing, and then you'll attract a whole different clientele.
Correct. Yes. That's it. So it's not a huge change, it's a small change. I think the biggest change or the biggest challenge for clients, if they don't have this in place, is to, I call it recruitment poetry, because when I was working with this client that the HR, it was like poetry in motion. We were all on the same page. Everything was transparent. Candidates felt involved, valued, respected. Those were the values of the company, and they weren't just saying it. Candidates could feel that right from the get-go. I felt it as a partner to the organization delivering a service. I felt part of that, what we're building here, and I'm important, and I'm doing important work for this client. So that thing, and maybe it's people, maybe it's getting the right people in the right positions that can have those relationships with your service providers. But that could be the deal between a candidate choosing your organization or a different organization. Yeah. That could literally make the difference. Yeah. So if you want to have a conversation, if you need us to help, if you need us to look at an ad, we're more than willing to do that, just to provide some guidance.
Yeah.
That's us.
Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Conversations That Connect.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends.
Connect with us on social media at Montagu Group on LinkedIn and Facebook. And please feel free to drop us a line with any topics you would like us to discuss, and of course, any questions that you do have.
Until next time, guys, stay curious and stay connected.